Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to, I'm going to call it a very blustery Nottingham here for the World Under-24 Ultimate Championships. A pleasure to be bringing you our first mixed division action of the weekend with the host nation, Great Britain, taking on Japan. Benjamin Rees and Rachel Douglas with you for this one. And I have been buzzing about this since we got the schedule all those days ago. It's always nice to see these kind of interesting clashes of styles that you tend to get at these world events.
Yeah, I can't wait to see these two teams with very different approaches to play matching up against each other, and we'll see how it turns out.
Yeah, of course, the first time we're seeing the mixed division action this weekend started in the women's division here with our coverage, and we've got Open coming up in the last round of the day at 5 o'clock. But of course, mixed division is the is where our focus is going to be for the next, well, roughly 100 minutes or so. First game of the weekend for both of these sides, and of course they'll be looking to put a strong foot forward, hoping to get that first win in the books and create a strong building point with a very big win, I think, for either side here. It's going to be Japan in the white, as you're seeing on your screen there. Starting on defense, pulling to Great Britain in the blue and red. And we are underway here. The lefty backhand bombs deep off the pool, and that one is going to keep on going with the wind out of the side of the end zone. And Great Britain will bring it from the brick mark. It's a bit of the elephant in the room, isn't it, Rachel, that it's pretty blowy here.
Yeah, you can see from the flags at the back of the screen, it's really, really gusting, and it's strong, and it's coming and going in bursts, but at its minimum it's strong, and at moments it can get a lot stronger. So it's going to be a constant theme of the weeks, I think, so far.
I expect that we might see lots of zone being played this weekend, as we are at this point from Japan, and it gets a quick short field turnover, just the little drop there from Maddie Long. Now Japan already looking at an early break here. Swung into the centre, now looking for a continuation around Onishi. Underneath, sneaks that past the defender into Kurokano. And again, trying to sit that one out in the space. Jumped into the end zone. Goal signalled by Great Britain. First one on the board from Japan into the hands of Shuto Nagai.
Japanese players streaking onto the field, definitely trying to celebrate that point. Obviously it's a break, it's the first point of the game, it's a break. They want to celebrate that confident movement we saw across the field, and that neatly jumped in, towed in to ensure the safety of that score and kind of make sure that stays, and they don't need to do that additional pass because that's adding extra risk. Great work from Japan there. It's difficult. This is the first point of their first game for this mixed team. It's a little miscommunication. It's a little drop. It's going to happen at points in the game. So as long as GB don't let that become their game, I'm not worried.
I think that's also what Japan were kind of hoping for there. In the windy conditions, there's a decent chance that maybe, something doesn't quite come out of the hand as you wanted, or just maybe slips through your grasp. So forcing lots of those little short passes there to kind of test the patience and test your fundamentals, I think, is probably a good strategy. And Great Britain having been broken on that first point, changing up their line a little bit, of course, with gender ratio rule A. So we do change the ratio after the first point. And already this looks like there's a bit more motion into this Great Britain offense. On the far side, Leon Williams, that is a brilliant adjustment there to keep that one from Billy Retham. Only been playing a couple of years, but you wouldn't know it from plays like that. Sneaking it down the sideline, and Haynes into the end zone, and an enormous kick spike to boot. Pun not intended there, from Leon Williams, levels it up at 1 apiece. That was much better and exactly what Great Britain needed.
Yeah, super decisive. The Japanese zone there, giving them a lot of space at the back. They're kind of the handler marks, or that sort of backfield defense didn't really ever seem to be tight around GB. They had a lot of room to work, although really making Retham work hard for that one. And then GB just kind of confidently moved it up that sideline, taking the space as it was given to them. Leon Williams with the big celebration there. very impressive, very decisive play from GB, and what you really need to do after a miscue like that first point, really demonstrating that actually this isn't going to be their game. They know how they want to play, and they're gonna come out and give it to them.
Yeah, this Great Britain side has incorporated talent from kind of up and down the country. There's a few players who play their trade in the mixed division in clubs. Got a few lemmings out there who kind of had their first European sojourn last season. Leon Williams with the score. He's based in Edinburgh, so again, kind of rather than just focusing on one or two places, really trying to draw from the depth of talent across the country. It's going to be Rosie Coward to pull here. And with a female matching puller, with the prescribed pulling rule, it means we've got 4 female and 3 male matching players at this point. So in play, first chance to have a look at the Great Britain defence. And it looks like they're just going one-on-one. We'll see how Japan's O-line can deal with the wind. Sneaking that one through. Nice little break and getting a bit of continuation. Shuto Nagai really faking and pumping that low release. Instead, Matsuhashi looking to get the break around. A couple of players there, and he completely trucked his teammate. Everyone's okay to carry on, thankfully. But would have liked a little bit more field awareness there. It happens. Horuto Matsuhashi. Just outside the end zone now, Goto. Japan happy to play this patient red zone game as they look to force their way over the goal line. Eventually, just a little quick movement allows the uncoverage towards this near side, and it's the 75 shirt of Kurakano who makes it 2-1 Japan.
Some really quintessential Japanese moments, sort of this Japanese style of offense moments in that point. You know, that really low inside flick that we saw that kind of just gets the disc into the middle of the field. These really big backhand fakes to make your mark move, and then those little pops that really keep the disc moving, keep it moving forward, not scared to just do these 1 or 2 meter passes to gain yards. That's very much what we've seen from Japanese teams for a while now. That's a very sort of Japanese style of offensive play, and it's so effective. And we mentioned earlier the kind of how the different styles were going to come together, and that's going to be something that GB will have been aware that they needed to prepare for. So it's going to be interesting to see as the game goes on what they have in store for us to try and demonstrate how they can limit the Japanese options and shut down those opportunities that we know the Japanese teams will be looking for.
Well, it's always interesting, especially when you face an opponent that, let's be honest, you're not really going to be that familiar with. You kind of get an idea of the style of play, but there's not necessarily a lot of footage out there on either of these sides, so you're a little bit in the dark, and you're trying to balance that. Yes, we want to adapt and try and shut down their game, but also we want to focus on making sure that we've got our game nailed down as well. The pull goes up from Shimo Yamada. Picked up at the brick mark by Jet Hilborn, who was super impressive for Great Britain under-20 at last year's JJUC, as that one's bobbled and slips through and to the turf from Leon Williams. Another brilliant break opportunity for Japan if they can just punch it in. Going to the goal line and over as well, past the bidding Hilborn, finding the target of Okamoto, and it's another Japanese break, 3-1. Great start for Japan with, I don't want to say it's an unfriendly atmosphere, but they know that the vast majority of supporters here will be rooting for their opposition.
Yeah, I don't think that that's something that they're really letting permeate their kind of mentality. You can see that the Japanese team are fired up. Their energy is really positive. They're cheering each other now. Wow, another look at that flying defensive effort. Really, really big play to try and get that D. Unfortunately, not being successful in this instance. Yeah, the Japanese looking very, very solid. So much energy across the line. Each time their sideline is streaking onto the field, it really feels like they've done a big job of kind of getting their heads into this high-paced, positive mindset. At the moment, maybe just in contrast, you'd be looking that little bit flatter. It's hard, to come out from a break. It's hard to come out from, a couple scores not going your way and having a few errors. But they really need to pick themselves up if they're going to stay in this game and not let Japan get an early lead.
So electing to let the pool hit the floor. The first part is short to Madi Leong. And that one always going to be a riser. Katma looks around to get there in time. So did Ayumu Takai, but he clatters into one of the GB players, Amelia Edwards. Looks like there's no call. Just looking for some hand signals. There we are, turnover. I think GB struggling to adapt to the wind a little bit. So picked up by Adachi, and he instantly rips it towards the end zone. Oh, it's so close, but no cigar for Josh East. Picked out the target well, and Ayumu Takai makes it 4-1 Japan. What a start.
Phenomenal work from Takai. Two GB shirts chasing him down, one behind, one in front. Josh East sort of had position, but just went up. Wasn't quite able to get hands on the disc, and Takai got his fingertips and was able to come down with it. Such a great play.
This is a case of picking the target, because generally the Japanese side, I think they're a bit cognizant of the fact that, yes, they're not necessarily the tallest of stature, but Takai is one of those players who has that extra length, and it is just weighted so precisely from Adachi. Pinpoint precision on the throw, and it's not a surprise here, I think, to see GB take an early timeout.
Yeah, you could really see that play initiating as well. Takai made the undercut as the disc was, before the disc was even picked up, and was already moving away. So it was such a clear communication between thrower and cutter that throw needed to go. And as you say, weighted perfectly. And despite the very heroic efforts of Josh East to get underneath it, and was so close. Another score for Japan, taking us to 4-1, and GB calling a timeout to reassess, refocus, and think about what they need to do to come back into this game.
Yeah, having a look at the atmospheric conditions here in Nottingham, in the East Midlands here of the UK. Temperature 19 degrees, so it's not so bad. It can get a little bit exposed at times, but it's more about that wind, and it is constant, and it gusts as well. It really tests your mettle as a thrower, I think.
Yeah, it's part, obviously, the actual physical challenge of making sure that you're, even if you're trying to make a quick release on your throw, that you're really weighting it and you're adjusting and you're getting the right level of spin and you're not making it too lofty. All of those adjustments need to go into how you're throwing, but also the kind of the mental challenge of when you have gusts of wind flying into your face, are you confident to make the throws you would usually make? Are you confident to put out and keep playing expansively? And it's a huge challenge. That maybe perhaps GB have yet to sort of adapt to.
Again, GB continue to lose Madi Leong as the centre point of this offence. That one looked like a strip, and it is, I think, quickly accepted as well by Okamoto. Just making sure everyone's back in the right position and it's checked in. Retham trying to piece apart. Ooh, some bladey throw towards the far side. That's a lovely thread through, though, from Josh East, and here's Hookyard. Josh East again surveying, looking for options. Retham comes through, getting it out of the hands quickly, trying to manipulate and move around the front line of this Japanese defence. Looks like we might have a transition here. No, they're going to stick in their shape. Huge hammer over the top from Retham. Can it be read? Not quite. Mopped up well at the back. Was trying to shoot for Amelia Edwards, but it's a very ambitious throw in these conditions, Rachel.
Yeah, really challenging and really well read by the Japanese player.
And that time, good focus to retain possession after the initial drop from Nishida. That is an absolute skyball. And in the end, Hawkyard just slaps it to the floor.
It wasn't intended to be a skyball. Sasha Haynes got a hand to that. That was a block straight off of the disc was released and just a few meters down. She wasn't on the force, but she definitely got a hand to that. So that's a block for Haynes, and really well anticipated and quite fearless. That came out hot.
The disc ends up a little bit warped, so they're just going to swap that out for a replacement Ultrastar. Discraft, of course, are the official disc partner of the WFDF. I'm using the Ultrastar all week here. I wonder if Wretham is maybe going to be a little bit more conservative with his choice of throw this time. Is East wanting the blade down the sideline? A little bit of toe drag swag there from Hawkyard. Wong. Running a little bit of 1-2 with Wretham in the backfield. Now to East, he's got time to adjust. One of those players who we normally see in the Open division, and actually will be playing with Great Britain Open at the European Ultimate Championships in just a couple of weeks' time. A little bit of give, go through, no, not quite. They read it and Okamoto came through, but there is a call here from Hawkyard, who maybe thinks he felt contact or that he had it under control. Obviously, one of the things that you see at world events that you won't necessarily see at national events is there will be those language barriers.
Your hand went like that on my hand.
Yeah, and we have our game advisor standing by, who of course is there to advise on the rules, and if requested, can give an impartial perspective on the play. But the play still needs to, the call still needs to be resolved by the players involved, and so this discussion is still really important. So that language barrier can be a bit of a challenge, particularly when you're trying to keep to the time limits of each sort of call.
Sheila and Guillaume are our game advisors in this contest. You can see Guillaume in there as well, just trying to again aid things with translation. So often you will see someone come out to help out and see if they can overcome that language barrier. It's tricky as well because I think players are kind of conscious that you're supposed to try to resolve calls in quick time, but obviously when you're kind of speaking through a third person, it's naturally going to take a little bit longer.
Yeah, and a lot of these calls are often, and this one it seems to be the case, quite sort of specific. You know, it's a question of really small margins. Like if the hands touch the hand, if your hand knocked the hand, did the hand get the disc? So the kind of the nuance of what's trying to be communicated creates additional challenge.
Do you guys think that you can come to a resolution?
Sorry, it's just a bit slow.
Yeah, I understand that, but
I'm
you guys
happy
think?
to contest it. It's up to
Okay,
you guys.
so is it going to be contested and come back to the thrower? Okay, foul, contested, we'll be coming back on the thrower.
And shake of hands afterwards as well. It's also interesting, you know, you hear the language of the game advisors. It's not do you have a resolution, it's do you think you can come to a resolution. They're just, yeah, again, very, very keen to point out that they're not trying to influence anyone's thoughts. It's all about letting the players on the field come to their own decision. As a miscommunication between East and Wretham in the backfield is going to give the disc to Japan. The GB offense that looked like to have found a little bit of rhythm struggles there, and there's a lovely inside flick. Going to put the blade deep. It's going to go towards the back of the end zone, and it's just overshot there. East tried to mop up in coverage. In the end, he didn't need to get a hand on it.
Yeah, just got his body in front and made sure there was no Japanese play on that disc. Josh, he's putting a big effort in so far this game. He's been sort of in the centre of all of it, and really determined to make sure that GB get this disc back.
And that is an expansive throw once again. Pins that one onto Hawkyard, and now Hawkyard and Wretham looking to run a little bit of 1-2. Now they open it up deep. They've got a target streaking towards the back of the end zone. And the layout snag with the swag as well from Sasha Haynes, adding a brilliant goal to her earlier assist, and it's 4-2.
Yeah, that's how GB want to play. They'll be really, really pleased with that possession. They were decisive, they were creative, they sort of took quite exciting options but executed them really, really well, and then just played sort of really expansively. And Sasha Haynes hustling to get down there, catching that with a layout to make sure. We see Josh East making sure of that initial defense to get the disc back, and then taking control on offense, getting that wide swing out, which then enabled this deep shot to Sasha Haynes, who catches it and goes to ground just to make sure, keep it in.
There's a lot of big bodies on this GB side, and Sasha Haynes might be the smallest of them, but timed the cut impeccably as well, created that separation, and Hawkyard was right to pull the trigger, and he got it bang on as well, which in these conditions, tough to do.
Yeah, as we said, some of those throws have been really challenging, but he put it low enough, but still with enough sit. So, like as you say, the cut was well timed, the throw was well timed and well executed. And if they're able to bring that level of focus and that level of commitment to the execution, then GB will very much be in this game.
Paul's going to go just beyond midfield. GB get their defense out there, and it looks like we're going one-on-one again. The gloved Hilborn on the mark. We already know how well he can judge those deep puts, but this time Adachi, I'm afraid, got a little bit too much on it, shooting for Naoya Takahashi.
Japan having a sort of a 1-6 offense look, maybe with the design of really making that initial look off the back of the stack for a long look, as a way, as you mentioned, of these teams don't really know each other, and just making sure that they're really threatening those long puts.
Ben Tang into that little soft area for Rosie Bailey. Now Atkins. The lefty surveys her options with a rising stall and quite a flat force here. Can she get something out? I think that was just get it out on a high stall, but got the right edge, and Hilborn read it well. And look at the IO shape on that one. That is, tell you what, trying to play the high ball percentages, and it was almost macked right into the hands of the GB receiver Bailey.
Rosamund Bailey getting into position, but just not able to clasp it as it bounces off of her chest. That was quite unexpected, and unfortunately unable to hold on to it. I quite like that option. I think it was expansive. I think it looked good. It maybe sat for that smidge too long, but GB keeping it interesting on offense. Yeah,
certainly a bit of a trust throw, I think, there for Tempest. Araki, who was able to get up and get that block. Swinging back to Adachi. You could see Tempest thought about flashing in there, but knew he couldn't get there in time. Just winding up for the deep shot, not there, instead breaking the backhand down the line into Takahashi. Now here's Kokido. Again, Japan trying to keep the disc moving nice and early. Into the 99 shirt, the lefty Nishida, and Tang read that one like a book. And Tang is going to shoot it as well. He's looking for Hilborn again. They're more than happy to put some air underneath it, a bit of argy-bargy underneath. And in the end, the Japanese defender comes out the winner, Mahiro Adachi.
Lots of jostling under that. Japanese player needing to take a quick stretch just to make sure he's all right to go and pick up the disc.
Nice a round break to start there to Araki. Araki again putting air underneath it. Got a receiver leaking out deep, but it's hanging. Oh, Tang took out the receiver, but the Japanese played on and continued into the end zone. As far as I'm aware, there's no call underneath it, and the goal does indeed stand. Japan lead 5-2.
It was quite a dramatic
a little bit.
contact there. Tang definitely made contact. I think they might have just been quite unlucky and sort of caught an arm or a leg, and that's why we saw, didn't catch the number of the Japanese player, but swinging around in the air. But since the play continued.
Yeah, here is that turn. Hilborn up against Adachi. And you can see the two of them bumping underneath it, and Hilborn gets up and above, but just can't quite clasp it. It's Takahashi, the player who's brought down. And then on the scoring pass, Oya finds Kataoka for the score. And you can see them just wait, make sure everyone's okay. Any calls? No? And then we celebrate. So there's kind of the seed there that's good game awareness.
Yeah, and actually sort of doesn't make sense for the foul call to go back. Japan had played on. The play weren't aware that anyone was on the floor, and then they thought they'd got the score.
So not a clean hold there for Japan, but a hold nonetheless.
So far this game, Japan on offense just seem to be using the space that little bit better than GB. GB sort of under a lot of pressure from the Japanese defense and struggling to find those gaps.
You could see the effect of the wind on that pull as Great Britain, working against the match defense, go with a horizontal isolate Hawkyard underneath. Continuation there goes to Chu. Chu back around to Hawkyard, and it just worked his way around him, agonizingly so for the Great Britain receiver. Continuation towards this near side for Anishi. Punches it underneath Suzuki. Trying to find an option as Retham tries to sneak his way around, can't do so, and when he's a little bit out of position, cheeky throw there from Yunoki to take advantage. Now looking for the low release. Oh, it was tipped on the mark there by Sophie Wong. Wretham will pick up. With neither side really hitting its full offensive rhythm so far. Tried to find the isolation of Chu underneath. Now Wretham has to go and reset towards the far side for Williams. East takes off deep. That is going to be the option. Over the head of the defender and right into the waiting arms of Josh East. Good cut. Excellent throw. Superbly weighted from Williams to make it 5-3.
I love that option, but I do think that option had to go because Japan were tightly person marking GB in that point. GB set up with a lot of space. They seemed to have a kind of a split stack. They'd isolated Josh East on that far side. But and we just saw the miscue earlier on. Get the disc back, and then the cuts that came after that just seemed to sort of be a bit stifled. This long put was a really great option. Josh East was running into a lot of space. That was really well weighted, but I don't know what else GB could have had in that moment. It seems as though the pressure of the Japanese defense was making the players pull out of their cuts quite early. You saw early movements. You know, they've created this big space. They're barely in the space, and then they're deciding that they're marked and they're sort of clearing out. But it actually just means that the thrower has very little to look at. And even on the dump, the Japanese defense is really, really tight on them, and they're really struggling to find that space. So maybe a little bit more determination from the GB offense, a little bit more commitment to their cuts, a little bit more belief that they can get the disc. Because at the moment, sort of Josh East seems to be having that feeling, but we're not really seeing it quite so much across the line.
Commitment is exactly the word that I was going to bring up, because yes, even if you make that cut and you're not free, if you commit to it, you get the defender there, it draws people out of space and it opens up that room for your teammates as well. That one was all a little bit of a riser. That is superbly handled there by Goto. But now with the rising stall, he's able to find the release valve. Teita Hamada. Korakano underneath. Hilborn with the layout. Was able to get the inside track, and not a surprise to see Hilborn instantly bang it deep. The target this time is Ibrahim, but once again the Japanese deep defenders look at the recovery speed and they knock it out the back of the end zone.
Ibrahim looked back over his shoulder, trying to confirm whether or not he could take this, had to attack it, or if he had a little bit more time. Of course, his defender was not hanging about at all and actually used that opportunity to get in front. Very unfortunate, but just trying to have that extra level of field awareness. Unfortunately, didn't pay off in that instance.
First pass is the swing to Kurakano. Having to play it within their own end zone at the moment. Hamada to Goto. Now getting a little bit of space with Araki. Araki opening it up downfield. Got a target that he likes, but Katma was there to slap it away. Ayumu Takai was the intended receiver, and I think that Katma, they're intentionally sitting a little bit underneath of these Japanese receivers, because with the wind and often with the height advantages, although not necessarily in that matchup, they're backing themselves to get those blocks in the deep space.
Definitely. Katma using his height to attack that early. Maybe wouldn't have had the sort of the height advantage against the receiver, but able to put pressure on that and get a hand to it before they have to figure that out.
First pass to Ibrahim, and then the initiation downfield. Weir looks for options as Ibrahim clears through. And puts him in the spin cycle there, does Hilborn. And you guessed it, Hilborn's going to rip it again, looking for Ibrahim. This time the put is bang on the money, a beautiful inside-out flick. And Great Britain have their first break of the game. It's now 5-4.
Scrappy point. Both teams, I think, figuring out what they need to do to put pressure on defensively. Both teams getting turns. But GB ultimately bringing it together to finally get that break on the board that they so desperately required.
So here's the first time that Hilborn was looking for Ibrahim deep, and that time it's really good actually positioning there from Ishii to get in front of Ibrahim, but this time he gets that space deep. What an inside flick. Absolutely rips this towards the back of the end zone. And I'll tell you what, it does feel like they've given Jet Hilborn a license to shoot here, doesn't it?
Yeah, JB definitely looking for those expansive options. And as we said, if they're struggling with some of the undercuts, then maybe that's going to be a good primary look. But as Japan seek to adapt their defense, then GB are going to need to make sure that they have other options available to them. Ibrahim and Ishii, a really fun matchup in that point. Each getting one, each reading one better than the other, and but ultimately GB coming down with that score.
So here's Atkinson to pull for Great Britain. Trying to get some air underneath it, getting it to hang in this wind, and it's going to land just shy of the end zone. Going to put Japan in not perilous field position, but they've got a long way to go, almost the full length of the central zone. Little inside break, sneaks it through to Goto. Now back in the hands of Matsuhashi. Whips it into the inside space. Now looking for the break side continuation, going with the offhand and sneaks it past the defender. Now they're already beyond the attacking break mark. They've got going so quickly, and Tang, I think, wanted the call that he had to bid for it, but he didn't get it, and Nagai is more than happy to take advantage and make it 6-4.
That's an incredibly difficult offense to defend against. They're really so creative in how they find that space. People that you think are covered because the angle is, in theory, too awkward or wouldn't be appealing to a lot of players. The Japanese players just aren't deterred by that at all, and they have this lovely, lovely inside breaks that they aren't afraid to use it to sort of gain yards or to use laterally. They just really find the space on the field. So if you're giving even just an inch, they'll take it, and that's just phenomenal play, slicing through that GB defense and over to the score. Nagai finding that space and being ready with the right timing for that cut.
Yeah, Nagai's second goal of the game. There may have been a timeout because everyone in Japan is kind of circled round as if there has been, but I didn't see one signalled.
GB is on the line. GB is ready to go. Looking a little confused about it, but Japan now hustling to get off the field.
Yeah, trying to get everyone involved. So even if you're not necessarily on the field at this point, you're still, you're aware of what the plan is. You're involved in the plays. You can provide as much help as possible from the sideline. The pull goes up from Kurakano. That one might just tail out of bounds. It does indeed. And Sophie Wong is going to decide to begin this one from the brick mark. 4 female, 3 male matching play at this point. Retham comes through. Pass goes to Maddie Leong. Just a little bit of toing and froing in the backfield at the moment. Quite a fair few bodies back there for Great Britain. Seeing if they can really suck the Japanese defenders forwards. At midfield now, East to Retham. Trying to utilise the quick disc movement to create those spaces. On the far sideline, now to East in the centre. Was looking back at Edwards. Instead, Retham. Bodies out. And GB content to slice and dice their way so far, but that's a lovely thread through there to Chu to begin to open things up a little bit more. Chu goes back to Retham. Now East, you can see how he's getting low and really putting lots of torque and revolution on those throws. Retham on the end zone line now. Leong goes back to East. Can they find a way through? Yes, they can. The field awareness to keep that foot up at the front of the end zone from Wong, and it is 5-6.
We said at the previous point that Japan just sliced through the GB defense, and it felt like GB sort of rose to that challenge and delivered an in-kind response there. Definitely very, very confident. We could see a bit of a zone from Japan. They had their female matching players up front putting the force on. I think maybe with the intention of putting some of their bigger male matching players downfield to deter those longer looks. But actually when you have such dynamic handler movement and are able to kind of really body through and make a lot of yards on those handler pops and move through, getting those handler forces a little bit off kilter, and they were able to gain so many yards. And then we saw that lovely slice through the middle from Josh East, who's really so far showing a really amazing dynamicism to his game, both on offense and defense. Really calm, really active, but yeah, just really opened that up, gained a lot of yards, and they're able to make their end zone play from there.
Second clean hold of the game for Great Britain, compared to just two, excuse me, from the Japanese. As that is and I mean this in the nicest possible way, a horrible pull from Hilborn that no one was close to receiving, but it rolls out the back of the end zone and Japan will bring it to the front. One of those where, yes, you want to catch the ball and get your offense going quickly, but do you want to be the person catching it? Not necessarily.
Not at all.
Adachi picks up, looking for the around break, and I think Katma getting a little bit too close for comfort there on the mask. Foul called and accepted. Obviously, he's got that big wingspan that can be very intimidating for a thrower. Little pass to Nishida. That one was low, but managed to levitate over the turf. Now Adachi just furrows that inside channel to Kataoka. Continuing around to Nishida. Again, one in the inside lane and another layout block from Hilborn. And he's going to pick it up, and I wonder what he's going to do. I didn't wonder at all. It was always going to be the deep look, but that time Katma wasn't on the end of it. Given the previous game in the women's division, which was also coincidentally, incidentally I'll say at least, GB Japan, GB Mix were watching from the bleachers behind the left end zone, and they were calling for Great Britain to really open it up and try and test out Japan a little bit more. So it's not necessarily a surprise to see them do that here. Takahashi, back to Araki. Just a little dish off into the backfield. Think about passing off that switch, but they stick with the matchups. Wants the lower round break. This time Hilborn's not there. There's the deep shot past the bidding Hilborn on the mark. And I wonder if maybe Hilborn's just the breathing down the neck led to the fact that, you know what, let's start opening things up, and it was always too much of an ask for Takai.
So I think that was Takahashi with the throw there. And yeah, I think he is under huge pressure from Hilborn.
Atkins picks up. On a rising stall again, trying to blade it around. The big-bodied Katma comes through, and now Katma's going to try and rip it down the sideline. Can they judge it? Well, judged to perfection. I wondered if Weir was going to be guilty of being too greedy, but he judged it well. Kept his feet in bounds, and most importantly, secured the catch. And we are level at 6 apiece.
That's such an incredible play from Cameron Weir to be able to think about, running full pelt as far as you can down the sideline. Think about getting your hands on the disc in the end zone, but also in the field. He's having to think about all those different lines, trying to make sure that that's the score and that they come away with no more passes needing to be made, as well as making sure that first touch was well ahead of the sideline. Really, really impressive thought process and kind of able to bring it all together. Great score from GB. Yeah,
We're another one of these players who's kind of come through the youth ranks, played under-17s in 2019 out in Wrocław in Poland, and GB under-20 at the Joint Juniors Ultimate Championships last year, also in Wrocław in Poland, coincidentally, so it's maybe nice for him to represent his home country on home soil as well. We'll be seeing him throughout the year, suiting up for Chevron Action Flash in the Open Division in the European Club Circuit. The visored Tang looking ready to pull. Great Britain still a break down, having started this game on offense, but given that, they did have their struggles early, good mental resilience from them to force their way back into this contest.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got to remember also going into this that GB have seeded 9th and Japan are seeded 2nd. That is quite like a big challenge even to start a game knowing that you're going up against one of the absolute top seeds of the tournament. And GB, perhaps maybe that's something that fed into their mindset earlier in the game, but they've really managed to make that adjustment now and are firing on all cylinders.
Tang got plenty of air under that pull, and too much air, in fact, because the wind was more than happy to just continually push it out of this sideline. Matsuhashi brings it in from the brick mark, and Tang, having pulled, is going to put the force on. Open, underneath, why not take it? Nagai. Back to Matsuhashi, and that time Tang just got too involved. Just a little, are we high-fiving? Are we, yes, no, maybe? That's a pick. As, Leon Williams stole it away. There will be the question of, did it affect that play? They're deciding that it happened early enough that it probably did. And you can see there very clearly the pick, the two players coming across each other. Snuck through. Ishii. Great Britain players more than happy to throw themselves around, but they took advantage of it well, and I think that's an injury call there from Tahid Ibrahim. He's walking gingerly off the field. Do hope that it's nothing too serious.
Yeah, I think a couple of the GB players just trying to be a bit of a nuisance in that middle area, kind of being a big presence, jumping up as those lofty discs went over, perhaps just landed a little bit funny on that ankle.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be able to get some treatment from, the GB physios and the excellent medical staff on site. Was kind of lurking in the back of the medical briefing this morning, which hopefully is one of those things that you never have to use, but it's nice to know that it's there just in case. Still count getting high here. Can they find the release valve? It goes to Okamoto. Just not quite yet at the attacking brick mark. You see marked in the center of the field there. Back to Nagai. It's the high work rate of these Japanese players continually moving towards the far side. Ishii gets it past the bidding defenders and in towards the back of the end zone. Shooter Nagai makes it 7-6.
A lot of patience from Japan moving that around. Big defensive pressure from GB to try and get that block in that last pass, but unfortunately not able to answer this really fast-moving, decisive Japanese offense. Or hard to say. Earlier on, we did see a block, of course, that went back. So it's a bit sort of unfortunate in that sense. But the opportunities for these blocks are very, very few and far between. So GB will really be feeling probably a bit hard done by that block didn't carry on through. But yeah, they don't get too many of those opportunities in a game. But it was a great play.
Yeah, you've got to keep working at them. Trust that the mistakes will come. They have generally been able to generate turns. Both sides have, even if they've not necessarily been as clinical as they would like. The early D-roll from Japan, the exception to that. The pull from Goto. It's just going to sit at about midfield, tail right into the lap there of Leong. Now Wong. Hawkyard wanted it, didn't get it. East now on this sideline. You can see scanning downfield, finds Sasha Haynes. East alters for the big give go. Spectacular effort from Retham, but it came up empty. Chance for Japan to break and give us an 8-6 half-time scoreline. And with the timeouts to use here, Japan opting to take one there. Both sides have 2 timeouts to use a half, and Japan opting to take one because, of course, if they punch this in, then, well, get a new set for the second half. We're going to take a little bit of a breather here in the booth, and we'll rejoin you for the continuation of this game very shortly. Welcome back to Nottingham for the World Under-24 Ultimate Championships here on Ultiworld and on YouTube as well. And if you want to make sure that you keep up to date with the coverage, then Ultiworld is the place to be. Huge thanks as well to our partners at Discraft and VC Ultimate. That one in the backfield, Japan just trying to get the offense going. It can be often difficult from that standing start, but they've done that well. Great Britain throwing themselves around on the mark, but they've still come up without anything so far. Towards the far sideline, thought it could have been punched in, didn't like it. The high release fake, no, just calling for patience there is Araki. We don't need to force this. And Araki, the high release over the top, judged well, and Oya adds a goal to an earlier assist, and Japan, with the break, will take an 8-6 half-time lead.
Yeah, very much Araki maintaining and dictating the pace of the game there. You could see him putting those fakes in. Does he want to pass it in? Does he want to pass it in? And then realising that actually GB were doing a pretty good effort to shut down that defence on the end zone line, just called for a bit of calm and movement, and ultimately found that nice lob into the end zone. Yeah,
it's a maturity that, you know, obviously under-24s, it's kind of the last time we have the age divisions until you go through seniors back up into masters, and you know, at this age you are still growing as a player and as a person, but the maturity there was impeccable. Half-time here at the World Under-24 Open, the World Under-24 Ultimate Championships. Mixed division action, Japan 8, Great Britain 6 at half-time. .48 teams representing 22 countries look to cement their legacy in Limerick at the 2023 European Ultimate Championships. You can join them. Watch live for free, only on Ulti TV.
For the first time ever, from the golden sandy blankets of Portimao, Portugal, Ula and Ulti TV bring you the World Beach Ultimate Club Championship 2024. The best club teams in the world will converge on the Portuguese Algarve. With expectations for upwards of 150 teams, this promises to be a tournament worth bucket listing. Whether on the sands or watching the action from your screen, WBUCC 2024 is a tournament not to be missed.
Welcome back to the World Under-24 Ultimate Championships here in a blustery Nottingham. Ulti-World's coverage of this WFDF event, and how you're having a look at the game stats from the first half, with Japan leading Great Britain 8-6, both with the same number of holds. It's the breaks that have been the difference, and it's just the clinicity that we've seen from the Japanese D-line. Of those 4 breaks, every single one of them they've converted cleanly.
Yeah, the Japanese side just seem to having a little bit of an edge over GB at the moment in terms of just that clean and clinical offense. GB have had those moments where they've really demonstrated it and they've really shown what they're capable of, but it's the consistency that we haven't seen. It's the consistency through the focus of a point, you know, getting that turn and doing something with it, ensuring they're not making errors. And as we said, we could see the building blocks of the challenges that they were seeing earlier in the game, where we watched some of their offensive points and really saw that the Japanese defense was causing so much challenge for the cutters that there were sort of smaller and smaller shapes, that sort of thing. So we're eager to see how the second half will shape out. GB 2 points down, but everything's still to play for.
Yeah, you're having a look at the pools for the mixed division here at the World Under-24 Ultimate Championships. Pool B we're in now, Japan and Great Britain alongside Colombia and China. So I think both of these sides, certainly you want to make sure that you're finishing in those top two, getting yourself a power pool position so you can try and give yourself the best path through to the finals as possible. Great Britain will be pulling to begin the second half with Japan receiving. Getting the lovely drone shot here of the Highfield Sports Complex in Nottingham, a beautiful venue. It's been the site of UKU Nationals / EUCR West, because they're kind of the same thing, for the past couple of years, and we thoroughly enjoyed coming here, and it's great seeing them now take that and introduce the world to this wonderful venue. And the tournament committee and the staff and the volunteers have done a wonderful job so far. Loved the opening ceremony this morning.
Yeah, lots of energy this morning as the teams came out with their national flags and all stood together, and we just sort of had an appreciation for the venue and the event and how special it is that we're all here together. And we see on the far sideline the GB teams and the Japan teams are all giving each other high fives as they kind of show their respect to their opposing team in this game as they come out fighting for the second half.
4 female, 3 male matching players this point. So a female puller means Rosie Coward is stepping up here to take the responsibility for Great Britain, just waiting to get this second half underway. Has the Ultra Star in her hands, of course. Discraft, makers of the Ultra Star, the official disc of the World Flying Disc Federation, but it's not just Ultimate, they make any disc you want. Second half now underway. Can Great Britain find an early break to try and get their way back into the contest? I thought there might have been a call there, but no. Goto says either she dropped it or the block from Chu came clean. That could be the early opportunity they need. Hilborn's got it. He's certainly not shy of trying to stretch the field. And you can see that one just pops over his intended target of Weir and is well mopped up in behind by Matsuhashi. And you've already created one turnover this possession, Great Britain. This point even, excuse me. Can you find another? Just has to be a little dish off. With things looking quite congested. Now that one always just going to slip through the hands and right back into the arms of Nagai. But she did indeed get a touch on it, which is why Nagai is allowed to catch his own throw. Little dish off there. Back into the hands of Matsuhashi. Now again a little bit floaty, but right on the sideline, the catch well stuck by Suzuki. Ishii underneath. Okamoto finds a way to thread it through to Matsuhashi. Continuing to play it towards the end zone. That one just about scooped up before it hit the grass. Now trying to find a little punching throw through. Going to have to go into the backfield though. Great Britain try and clamp down now in the red zone. Looking to lead that one out into space with the blade. Oh, the layout. Had he taken off by the time he caught it? I think Weir is suggesting that his foot was still on the floor at that point, so he is going to check himself back in, not in the end zone just yet. Japan, the little toss off with the lefty, still not in the end zone. Can they just about force their way through? No! Great little sag off on the mark there from Weir, and he just burgled that one before the Japanese receiver could secure the goal. Hilborn picking up. Rips the underneath to Weir. Panling comes through. A little bit of congestion, but Hilborn finds a way. And now an expansive blade over towards the far side. Looking for Coward. Oh my word, somehow it fell right in her lap. Coward dumps off to Pantling. Great Britain need to convert this red zone possession, and that is a way to do it. Hawkyard punches in the break to Sam Chu. Perfect start to the second half for Great Britain. 7-8 the score.
Japan looking more under pressure at that point. The way that they sort of sliced through that GB defense in the first half and at times just seemed to be unaffected by it. This second half, that first point, GB really making a huge effort to be putting them under a huge amount of person-to-person pressure, being really tight on them, and those clean slices just weren't able to come off. We see here the big effort to make the score called out on the field, so that was the resolution, and that amazing heads-up defense which led to the plays and the score ultimately for GB. Really good hustle from the line there, able to keep going, keep tight on Japan, and it did look like the Japanese offense was, I think, a bit more ruffled than we've seen so far this game. So kudos to the GBD line for taking half to refocus and come out with a lot of force and a lot of power and ultimately work their way in.
Have a look at this for yourselves. The catch is there. Is that right foot still in contact with the ground is the question. Weir didn't seem to think that he hadn't quite taken off yet. And Nagai, I think, accepted that quickly. It's funny when you slide them down how often you actually turns out that you haven't quite taken off yet. But again, obviously what we think in the booth, not the important thing. As long as the players on the field come to a resolution they're happy with, that's the important thing. As Tang lays out but doesn't get it. Adachi just sits that one out there into space. Tempest was trailing Hamada. Trying to sneak it towards the sideline, Takahashi. Again, East, you can see sagging a little bit on the force there. The flick faked through from Kataoka. Bounce the cup back towards the centre of the pitch. Now faking the high over the top, coming through underneath. This is where Great Britain were able to get the turn last time, but a couple of players come to bracket that cut at the front of the end zone, and great recognition by Japan to find Takahashi in that little soft spot front and centre for 9-7.
So easily done when you're defending on the end zone line. Is you panic and you cover the big threat, the person you think is the threat, thinking that perhaps they're not well covered enough or something's going on there, but ultimately by doing it you do create that space in the middle, and that's exactly what Japan always seek to find, and Takahashi really maximising that by taking a step to the side, it seems, and was completely open for that score.
Yeah, getting broken to start the second half, obviously less than ideal for Japan, but picked themselves up well enough there. We'll see Great Britain's O-line take the field for the first time since the interval. As the coach is passing along some instructions. Looks like I think they may be calling to make sure that they're utilising the full field dimensions and keeping the width in their offence. We'll see if that comes to pass. The spin pull, wrench deep from Hiroto Matsuhashi. I think this one is just going to drift out of bounds on this near side. And they want a new disc. Not quite sure where that other one ended up.
Thank you.
20 seconds.
Madi Leong picks up from the brick mark. They've got the poach on Williams. That's instantly the first option, leading past to space for Hawkyard. Back centre to Williams. Wants to continue towards that break side. Leong, oh, another miscommunication, but could potentially be rescued with a spectacular layout. What form there from Amelia Edwards. You cannot do it in a more, just textbook form. Haynes now underneath. Nice switch passed off by the Japanese defenders. East wants to shoot for Hawkyard. He's got it for 8-9. It's all about that layout from Edwards, though, isn't it? Let's not sugarcoat that it isn't.
Want to pay respects to the point. East, great job recycling the disc there and ultimately finding the good option in the end zone. But really, that layout from Amelia Edwards was just phenomenal. We'll get to have another look at it here. Overshot throw, and she just hunts that down, doesn't give up, and as you said, does this beautiful, beautiful layout form. And she gets right back up and goes to work.
That's
there's
what
no
you
time.
need to do. Don't bask in your glory.
Yeah, no time-seeking applause. Just does her job, and really just a phenomenal play. But that is again that play had to come from a miscommunication from GB. It seems like they're looking at their dumps quite early. There's not a lot of time for the downfield options to kind of present themselves. They look at their dumps quite early, but we are seeing some miscommunications on how the dump passes and the dump swings are executed. Hopefully there'll always be a layout Amelia Edwards who can go and save the day, but if that's not always going to be the option, unfortunately. So that's just one of those areas where they're under pressure from Japan, but they need to be making sure that they have safe resets.
Yeah, Hawkyard getting his first goal of the game to go along with a couple of earlier assists as a product of my alma mater, the University of Sussex. And feels like a busted coverage there. Instantly recognised by Japan and exploited. Everyone's now on the same page, and that one's thrown right to Hilborn. This time he's calling for patience. We know, though, that he, when needed to, not necessarily shy of opening his arm. Weir into the backfield, plenty of time, one-handed grab from Vero. Just to Katma. The defender was right on that. Now Weir, just a few yards outside the end zone, looking to punch it into Hilborn. It floats, but he snags it, and Great Britain equalise once more. It's 9s here, Rachel. Game is still very much on.
Absolutely. GB, they're looking a bit scrappier. They're looking like a slightly less collected than Japan have for most of this game, but they're still doing the job. They're still getting those blocks. They're still putting so much pressure. This second half has really been a turnaround for the GB defense. The person-to-person defense, person-to-person pressure that they've put on has generated turns. They've been smart. They've worked hard, and this is the fruits of their labor. When it works really well, and when it's not working, they're working really hard to try and recover. And I think that's the story of the latter part of this game for GB. And they're really in this.
Well, it's interesting because, previously when they've generated turns, they've often given them back. A lot of the time, they're looking to stretch the field. But that time they were like, no, we'll keep it calm, we'll just work it underneath. And the result is their first clean break of the game. You see there that Great Britain generating more break chances than their opponents, but they've just been more profligate when they've done so.
Energy from the GB sideline also picking up, which of course, as you start to gain momentum, can be so pivotal to keep your team focused, keep their attention.
Hoping to ride the partisan home support here. And there's the drop. Great Britain with a glorious chance and instantly, ruthlessly punished. One pass was all it took. Ridgway finds Tang, and Great Britain lead for the very first time this game, 10-9. That is now 3 on the spin for the Brits.
Feels like we're in a momentum shift here. Japan started so strong. They had so much energy. We talked about the sideline cheering, everyone on the field streaming on and supporting their teammates. And we can really see quite clearly how that energy has shifted over to GB. GB have high energy, they're cheering each other, they're on the sideline, they have claps and chants, and at the moment Japan just feeling that little bit flatter. And we see here this drop from Goto, just unfortunate, didn't hold on to it, maybe wasn't quite focused enough, and GB immediately capitalise with that pass to Ben Tang, who celebrates with his teammates that they got that that score and went up for the first time in this game.
Yeah, having conceded those 3 on the spin. Japan taking a timeout here to get their heads together. So we'll do the same in the booth, and we'll rejoin you on the other side. The World Under-24 Ultimate Championships here in the beautiful city of Nottingham in the UK. First mixed division action of the weekend. Great Britain 10, Japan 9. The first time Great Britain have led all game. Hilborn with the pull, the backhand that blades and bounces and is fielded comfortably enough by Japan after a couple of hops. Having conceded 3 on the spin, can they pick themselves up? A man mountain of Katma on the mark. There's the deep put, trying to open it up to the big man Takai. And I'll tell you what, that is some way to get back on the board. Rips it away in front of the defender Andrews, and we're tied at 10s.
Expansive look from Japan there and a great takedown. I do think that to me, that point felt reminiscent of one that we saw earlier in the game from GB. There didn't seem, it's a beautiful throw, it's a beautiful option, and you know, they really back Takai to come down with those. But it feels reminiscent of the point where we talked earlier about the long put from GB, when it was a great shot, but what else did they have under? And it felt like the sort of the cutters for Japan were really well covered from the GB defense, weren't really kind of maximizing that space, and it didn't seem like anyone was about to become free, and that there were really going to be any options in the underfield. So of course then it's great to have that long look and make sure that if you can't do one, then you have the other. But again, that GB defense really ramping up and putting a lot of pressure on Japan, and if GB are also able to make that adjustment to take away that deep shot, then Japan might be in a bit more trouble.
I tend to associate the Japanese deep game, they're kind of flatter, quicker, zippier throws for players to run onto, rather than putting air underneath and have them kind of win that contested aerial duel. But that time Takai came up trumps. Sophie Wong doesn't want to risk the drop pull, so is just going to let it drop. Maddie Leong has Josh East wide open underneath, does the wise thing and takes him. A little bit of a collision downfield. That one, excellent grab under tight pressure there from Sasha Haynes, who has quietly been very impressive this game. Now Leon Williams, Josh East. Oh, a lovely little bit of shake and bake to wriggle his way free in the handler set, and then down line to Maddie Leong for her first goal of the game. Great Britain back in front, 11-10. It feels like they are a different animal in the second half, I think, Rachel.
Absolutely. We talked about the momentum shift. We said earlier, is this a momentum shift? I think we can confirm this is indeed a momentum shift, where we saw Japan with their energy and their decisiveness and their clean play earlier in the game, and GB looking that little bit shakier. That's completely shifted around. GB defense putting in a massive effort now, and the GB offense coming out clean.
Yeah, it was messy and muddy at the start for Great Britain, but I think this is credit to, again, kind of resilience, being able to fix things out. It's also, clever coaching, putting players in positions to succeed, but that's not to diminish the Japanese efforts, of course, because, we saw them come out to a 4-1 lead at the start of this game. Who's to say that they couldn't do that again here?
Yes, this is exactly the game that we come here to see. We want to see these phenomenal teams competing at this stage. And the fact that we have great tight games just speaks to the quality that we see across the divisions here at the U24 World Championships. And everything to play for. Each team have worked so hard to get here and to be here representing their nation. So they're excited, we're excited. And there's still time in this game. Let's see what happens.
There's such energy here at the field sites, and it's one of the wonderful things about covering the slightly younger age divisions, is that you do kind of get that extra buzz at the site, the wonderful Highfield Sports Complex, of course, the host this week. There's the deep shot. It's blading towards the far side. Hilborn lost it completely in the air, but excellently read by the Japanese receiver. I'm just trying to spy a little shot of who it is. It's the number 34 shirt of Toshiki Ishii to make it 11 each.
Great read from Ishii. Hilburn working hard to get down there, but just not able to kind of keep eyes on the disc as it goes over his head. And Ishii making sure of the catch and then looking down and was delighted to find he was in the end zone.
Yeah, and he's doing the right thing there, because how often do you see someone try and milk it in and they get maybe, you can accuse them of avarice and they just, yes, they're in the end zone, but the disc isn't in the hands. And it's the number one thing, of course, is to make sure that you secure possession, and that time doing so. And hey, look, the fact that you kind of come down foot in the end zone as well, nice bonus to have. Although there was some backup as well, should he have needed it.
Absolutely. And we see Josh East doing some exercises. He's been a really important person on offense and on defense for this GB line. We saw some really excellent footwork from him in the last point that for GB, the last time the offense was on the line, to lose his mark and make a really important upline gain.
Just the one turnover so far this half for Great Britain that came on that first point, and they did turn it over again and punch it in for a break. And more zone defense coming out from Japan, trying to slow down Great Britain and force them to really slowly matriculate the disc down the field. But that's a lovely shot over the top. Well judged to Leong, with the wind a little bit softer now. You have more of a license to be expansive with those throws. East, the receiver falls over there, but Williams is able to pick himself up and get back into position. I think could maybe do with a little bit more support here, though. Eventually gets it in the form of Wong. Wong around to Edwards. What a bid that was that came through. And a little bit of an apology because the guy might have clipped Edwards on the way through. Here's East. Again, you can see he's really trying to direct traffic downfield. Williams. Back to East. Oh, finally finds the spot and just overcooks it ever so slightly. And it agonizingly just popped over the outstretched arms of Sam Chu.
GB looking slightly more disrupted by that Japanese zone towards the latter part of that point. They moved the disc really well through the kind of the first movement to about the midway line. Then when they got to about the brick mark, just looking really, really contained by it. So Japan making some good adjustments there, and GB perhaps falling out of the ideal structure.
Big around swing, all bobbled, but excellent focus from Kokido to make sure that she was able to snag it at the second attempt. You can tell the GB pressure ratcheting it up. Edwards going for the bid that I don't think she was ever really going to get through. And was a lot of contact on that one as the throw floats and East gobbles it up. Hawkyard, first touch of this point. They've been using him to just try and drag defenders out deep, but now he's back in the handling space, looking for an option. Can he find the little thread through? Oh, the cheeky backhand blade, and excellent field awareness there to toe the line from Sophie Wong to make it 12-11.
Japanese defense just looking more effective for moments in that point than we've seen in the rest of the second half. It seemed as though actually, as you mentioned, there was the handlers for GB but were a bit abandoned at points there, and perhaps they didn't have enough people around the back to move to really disrupt that cup. Therefore, the cup was being really effective. But ultimately, GB managed to keep their cool. And after, they did lose the disc, and despite a fumble there, that wasn't the turn that got it back for them. So Japan holding on, but this slight overthrow there that picked up into this wind, able to be snatched by Josh East, and then quite slyly worked in there, as you said. That was a precision throw that had to go round and just round the Japanese defense but stay in bounds. So very kind of creative approach, but ultimately a success.
Hawkyard was representing Great Britain in the Open Division at the European Indoor Championships back in Lithuania in December, and quite an indoor style throw there, quite a vertical angle of release on that one. And actually, Sophie Wong, who was the receiver, was also one of those players who was representing Great Britain at the European Indoor Championships at the tail end of last year. Another deep shot from Japan. Roasts him deep there. Brilliant cut from Takahashi. You see the speed across the ground. And on a high stall, just gets out the push pass and gets rewarded by Goto. Hey, you may as well put something up. You never know what comes through. Now Kurakano, been a bit quieter in the second half. Hilborn tried to poach off to get the disc. He couldn't get there in time. Can he get back into position? Has to reset outside the end zone. Adachi. Player wide open, Araki. I think just calling, give him a bit more space. We don't need to be quite so closed in. And there's the high release over the top. Oh, it sails! And right there on the spot, case of right place, right time for Nell Ridgway.
Yeah, excellent heads-up defense from Ridgway. Definitely didn't know that disc was sailing in, but managed to turn and get a hand up at just the right time.
That one into the centre. Katma's there. Was he the intended target? I'm not sure, but I'm not sure that Tang also minds that much. Back in the hands of Tang, this time to Weir. There's the deep shot. I think that's going to ask too much of everyone. Not that it's going to stop them trying. And in the end, Hamada was in front of Hilborn anyway.
Weir absolutely rifled that one deep. There was so much sauce on that. Really aggressive shot. Probably because he's actually sort of throwing that more or less into the wind, so it needs to have a lot of spin and a lot of force on it to not get taken by the wind, which it didn't. It really flew with as much force as it was thrown with and in the direction intended, but unfortunately that didn't line up then with the cut that had been provided for him.
Obviously, you've got the natural shelter with the trees behind that left-hand end zone, and with the, as well, lining University Boulevard in the background, that once you get a bit of air underneath it, it can be a little bit variable and tough to judge. Blading that one over the top. Hilborn gets the tap on it. Thought it might have stayed alive for a second, but instead another glorious red zone chance here for Great Britain. Hilborn picks up. Tang wants it. He's being marked really well, though. They'll have to find a second option on a rising stall. Just put some air underneath it. Weir gets his name on it, and Weir comes up with the goods. Great Britain 2 up at 13-11.
That was a phenomenal defense from Hilborn. He was going for it, and I thought that from the angles it looked like it was going to be one of those ones where you make the bid but you can't get there in time, and actually you're then not there to cover it. But the speed on those legs to be able to make such a huge play and then calmly walk up.
I mean, yes, he's had his fair share of turnovers this game, Hilborn. I think he probably recognises that. But my word, he's been such a big presence for them defensively. That his third block of the game, and there was one layout there. He's getting up high, and there was one where he read the play well to intercept. He's showing why he's more than justified his spot on this roster at his very young age. Mentioned that he was representing Great Britain in the Open Division at the U20s last year as well, at the World Juniors portion of JJUC, and he was the stat leader for that side. And he's more than proved his worth.
Yeah, just 20 years old and already playing such a phenomenal level was so impressive. And again, it's one of the things we love to see at these Under-24 World Championships.
Something I thought was interesting as well in the little player bio he gave us is that his sporting hero is actually Japanese. It's Masahiro Matsuno, the legend, the seemingly ageless Matsuno as well. Pull well fielded by Japan. Can they find a strong finish towards this game? They've relied on the deep shots in this second half, and that one with the layout, oh my word, he's done brilliantly to keep that one up, as Nagai, and a huge fake as well. The mark takes a big old bite out of it and just sits that out into space. What a throw to Goto. I'll tell you what, Shuta Nagai is having himself a day out there.
Yeah, it was an incredible rundown and safe reception for Nagai. I'm always a bit nervous when I see the layout with the clap catch. You know, it's so easy for one of those edges to bump on the ground, but safe as houses, came down with it, and then a beautiful shot to that far side of the end zone for the score. Japan really showing they're still in the game, and although their play maybe have to be adapting and it may be a bit more disrupted by GB than it has been earlier, perhaps in the first half, still showing that they're able to make those adaptations and keep things interesting, keep the game lively.
And it was a really tough read here as well, because you're seeing it on the replay that disc is always going away from him, so he really has to turn on the jets to get there. And then, you know, big fake as well. He really commits Ben Andrews on the force, and that opens up the space to just sit and float that wonderful, as some of our colleagues may say, buttery biscuit of a backhand towards the far side. So 13-12, Great Britain still in the box seat here. Japan needing to find a couple of breaks. Retham fields the ball from the floor, centres to Leong, and that time it just never really got out of our hands correctly. This might be one of the breaks that Japan need. Picking up is Matsuhashi, looking for a third assist of the game, and he's got it. Japan break, and we are level at 13 apiece. What a game for our first mixed division action of the weekend, Rach.
Stunning. And Japan, again, we said the energy of the sideline is such an important element to any team, and the Japanese sideline may be a bit quieter in the middle as GB were on their bounce back, but you can hear them now. They're supporting their team, they're celebrating that score, that lovely inside break, and obviously a very happy receiver there in the form of Tsuka. Yeah,
Toshiki Tsukada, first time we've seen him on the stat sheet, but coming up in the clutch there, 13 apiece. Still just under 20 minutes until the cap comes on, so I feel like this one's going all the way to 15, Rach.
I think it's going all the way, and what an exciting game it's been. So much energy from both these teams, so much commitment, such huge plays. You can tell every single player out on that field is so into this.
Yeah, which way is it going to go?
I'm not a gambler. This is too much. I'm going to have to just, believe in my home side, throw my weight behind them. But honestly, it's such a great matchup. And as we said, these two different playing styles. It's so fun to watch them come together.
It is indeed. It's one of the great things about these world events is seeing players who would not have really seen much of each other before, and seeing how that all dovetails nicely to create enthralling contests such as these. As that one right into the centre there for Leong, and I think just the pressure forced the drop. Japan can take the lead. Past the bidding east, looking to continue the break side flow. Instead, just dishing off back to Matsuhashi. Matsuhashi wants the around break, well covered, but gets the underneath to the birthday girl, Okamoto. Shimo Yamada. Around, that might float a little bit, and it's going to float too far. Opportunity lost. Still, if you are going to turn it over, this is not a bad place to do it, because Great Britain are going to have to work the full length of the field to get the break. Japan in a zone defense, check in on the mark. First pass is a reset back to East. East with the blade down the sideline for Williams. He wants that big cross-field shot. Doesn't see it, so just dishes off to Williams instead. Squeezes that one through that narrow channel to Leong. He's bounced back strongly from that drop. Lovely blade through there to Edwards. Edwards now to Hawkyard. Wants to dish it off, goes for the offhand. Chu. Looks back, finds East in the reset space. East absolutely rips that blade down the line to Hawkyard to make it 14-13. Great Britain within one of victory now, Rachel.
these points are just so exciting.
It's been an utterly brilliant game. I could not have think of a better advert for this tournament than, this game being our free game of the day.
Yeah, the Japanese defense playing really smartly in that point, catching them in this, trapping them in this corner and putting that poach in the lane. But GB just so comfortable resetting. We saw a few turns, but the GB just slicing through ultimately, and a couple of aggressive shots. That was an aggressive shot from East, but it was absolutely pitch perfect, really excellently executed, well-timed cut, exploiting the space that the Japanese players really don't want them hitting. And yeah, if you're going to execute it that well, then why not? Why not take those shots on?
At the start, they were taking them on, but you could tell that it wasn't quite clicking for them. But as they've gone on, it's about the whip and the spin they're generating on the throws. It really slices through the breeze. Japan need to hold here to take us to Universe, Sudden Death, DGP, whatever you want to call it. We'll see what they have in the locker. You could see how the height of that disc just varies up and down in the air. Fielded well, though. First few passes still inside their own end zone. Ishii. Here's Nokoto Kurokano. Oh, with the left hand, could only just palm it round the corner. This could be the game if Great Britain can find the composure to punch it in. What do Japan have left here? We've seen big plays from them already. Can they find another? Hilborn begins by swinging to East, who's crossed over to play D-line now. Offhand from Katma, back to East. Hilborn slashes underneath. Weir tries to get that body position. Instead, the left hand. Oh my word, how on earth did that find its way to East? I'm not quite sure, but it doesn't matter because it is still in Great Britain's hands. That one, what an inside-out shot, looking for the toe drag. Didn't get it, but finds the continuation through to Emily Atkinson. 15-13. Great Britain come back from that slight horror start, 4-1 down, and take a massive 15-13 win that you feel gives them the inside track to top the pool here.
That was such an unbelievable game, that both teams coming out with these exceptional plays, but really this mentality, the ability to dial your team in, dial your energy in, and dig yourself out of a hole to come back and finish that strongly against a team of this caliber. I mean, the Japanese team are phenomenal. We know that. We've seen their programs year through year. They're always a really strong side. They always play in a really interesting way. This team is no exception. This Japanese team put together so many excellent plays, interesting defensive looks. They really dominated that first part of the game, and all credit to them for such a formidable game, but GB being incredible to bring that back. And here we have some of the stats of the game.
Yeah, you're seeing, interestingly, Japan, especially in the first half, their offense was a lot cleaner, but in the second half, GB cleaned things up so superbly. They were generating more chances, even though Japan had more clean holds, because I think when they could get one turnover on the Japanese, it kind of felt like that, oh, actually, all of a sudden, we've got that energy to feel like we can go out and get extra blocks. And as well, because their D-line often was more than happy to shoot it deep, they're forcing Japan into worse field positions from the restart, and they were often capitalizing on that.
Yeah, it just seemed like GB defense found a different gear later in that game, and the whole team, I mean, as we mentioned it multiple times, but the energy of the sideline, the kind of keeping everyone focused is such an important moment, such an important contribution to any team, and it really felt like GB figured out how to do that in that game, which will be phenomenal for them to start their tournament with such an incredible win against such an amazing side as Japan.
Yeah, I mean, for Great Britain, I think there are a lot of people putting quite, high expectations here on the GB mix side, and I think they certainly delivered there. They'll know that the work's not done, just the first game of the week, but they've got off to an absolute flyer there.
Yeah, couldn't ask for a better start, particularly because it was so contested. It really put them through their paces, and as the start of the world's competition, for GB that will have gone as well as it could have gone, I think. For Japan, they'll be disappointed, and I think they're right to be disappointed because they really were so strong in that game that could have been their game. It was really, a question of who's going to have it in the moment. But Japan putting in some exceptional plays and showing the strength across the whole team. It really felt like there's so much trust for Japan. They'll if someone's free, they get the disc. That's all there is to it. And so yeah, really great mixed, really great play, really expansive. Great to see.
Yeah, we're going to see if we can grab a couple of players over for a little post-game interview, as you're seeing, of course, just quite how strong the wind is there in the background. You're seeing the little boards of our sponsors and partners, of course. Discraft, the home of the official disc of WFDF. VC Ultimate, producing the world's best gear since 1998, and now a bit more eco-conscious as well, using recycled materials and gender-free fits as well, of course. And great to have them on board, continuing to help grow the game and provide coverage from this wonderful field site here, the University of Nottingham Highfield Sports Complex, a glorious venue for the World Under-24 Ultimate Championships. It's been, honestly, first day, and you can tell that the excitement that we've got, it's really buzzing and bubbling around the complex, and we've got a full more week of this to come as well, which is which is wonderful to say. And of course, if you are watching these free streams, the one free stream of day, of course, we will continue to bring you. But if you want more of this, then you know where to go. ultiworld.com is the place to watch all of the coverage of this week. But we are able to grab you a quick little interview now with one of the key players and captains for Great Britain, number 15, Josh East. Josh, seems like that went well.
Yeah, it went really well. We started off a bit slow. We need to get out of that sluggish kind of momentum. But yeah, really well. Great start.
Obviously, you got off to a less than ideal start, going 4-1 down. What was kind of said in the huddle at that point?
What was said in the huddle is just trying to get your heads in the game. We knew we were better than that. Obviously, we've had pre-season. We started a bit faster during then, but going forward, I think we'll pick it up.
It felt like, especially in the second half, you got off to a roaring start, and you really forced Japan to kind of go away from their game a little bit more. Was that a case of in-game adjustments, or just kind of ratcheting up the tempo and the energy a bit?
Yeah, shout out to obviously the captains and the coaches, for getting all that tactics out there going forward. I think just having a bit more fun, a bit more communication with the players, and we'll be great.
One more question. How far do you think you can go this week?
I reckon we can go all the way.
Love it. I love the optimism and the energy. Well done. Well played, Josh, and well played, Maddie, as well. Good to see you out there, and hopefully we'll get to see a bit more of you as the week goes on.
Perfect. Cheers. Thank you. All the best.
Lovely to get that post-game reaction there live from down on the field, as well as we're going to give you a little highlights package to end this contest. And you're seeing just Japan off to a roaring start, but a game where the pendulum really did swing back and forth. And the quality of the game was so high for a 15-13 game to end with 15 minutes left before the hard cap came on. I think shows the quality of both of those sides out there, Rachel.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing from this highlight reel, there were so many highlight plays in this game from both sides. Massive layout grabs for Hucks, huge defensive pressures. Beautiful.
Yeah, so that will do it here for coverage of this game. Mixed division action here at the World Under-24 Ultimate Championships, brought to you by Ultiworld. The final score here from Pool B, Japan 13, Great Britain 15.